Hello everybody, and welcome to the second episode of Golarion Illuminated. I'm Michael T. Bradley.
And I am Jason Freston.
Alright, so we are going to continue our talk and kind of end the discussion going from Earthfall to Aroden's death pretty much, and a little bit later, but mostly that. So let's start with, do we have anything left to say about Aroden? Specifically, I think we mentioned we were going to talk anything about Absalom that came up.
Well, there's some stuff. Apparently Absalom was actually, well, the island of Protos was actually raised by Aroden after he found the Starstone, and Absalom is the city. Absalom is actually, the isle is Protos, the entire nation's Absalom, and then the city, the capital city, is Absalom also.
Gotcha.
So he did all that. Go him. Past that, with Absalom specifically, that's also the resting place, I think we discussed that briefly, of the Starstone and the test of the Starstone to become the gods and all that's right there. It is, and this is something I hadn't realized at the time, but it's actually, Absalom is a separate nation than Taldor, so...
Okay.
But...
And we'll get into like different nations and stuff next time, because we're going to start in with factions. We're going to start trying to do stuff that's a little more specific for the organized society play, at least for a little bit. Then we maybe go back to Golarion in general, whatever. Anyway, okay, so talking about this, let's talk about, this ties in with Earthfall, right? The Drow. Drow in Golarion, and how they are called Drow,
yes,
right?
they are still called Drow.
Okay, so, you know, everybody knows and loves the Drow from AD&D to 3rd edition and on because of Drizzt. So in Golarion, in the Pathfinder world, how do the Drow operate? How did they come about?
Specifically they came about because when Earthfall happened, most of the elves ended up taking off using the Solarian stone to go to a different plane or planet, or they're very non-specific on that. It could possibly be the elves' homeworld, but a chunk of elves stayed behind. Some of those elves kind of just ended up living amongst humans and other less lived races. Some of them, though, like actually a good chunk of them, a sizable chunk of them, went underground to try to, because the surface was devastated. You know, it's essentially a nuclear winter. And
okay, let me pause you there because I've already got like 2-3 questions.
Okay.
Okay, so most of them went off to whatever it was, Solarian's super salad, because they knew about Earthfall coming, right?
Yes.
Okay. Another thing is Solarian, or however it's pronounced. Is that like the same thing as
Solarian,
the
I believe, actually.
Sorry
about that.
Is the Solarian, is that the same as like the Feywild?
No.
Okay. How is it different?
Not that I'm aware of.
How is it different from that, would you say, or is that, or do we not know enough about the Feywild?
We don't really know much about either.
Okay.
The elves have been very close-mouthed about what that place is. I mean, it could be another planet in the Golarion system. It could be an entire different plane of existence.
Because the way you talked about it kind of made me think about like what's it called, like Tir na Nog or whatever, in you know our where the like you know Midsummer Night's Dream, they all come out from that realm and prance about in ours.
Well, I mean, that is, I don't know how far off topic we are on this, but I mean, that is kind of a standard elf mythology thing, is that the elves come from someplace else, or return to someplace else. I mean, you have it in Tolkien, you have it in Realms, you have it in Golarion, kind of.
Okay, so they use the magical thing to go away, and then, and so when they come back, they're going to be like the high elves, right? They're going to be the more...
Yeah,
okay.
I believe so.
Okay, so some of them went underground.
Yes. Some of those went underground, and those are the ones that basically for, they're never really specific on the time, but apparently it's a huge chunk of time. They're underground, and they get enslaved by different races. I mean, they lose people just to death and disease and infighting and whatnot. And I mean, essentially, they're kind of at the last brink. They are almost to the point of just utter collapse, and one of them, you know, again, this is like time memorial, so they don't really have great records of it, but one of them essentially stumbled upon the idea of making deals with the demons, and
so to keep the race alive.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was like literally a devil's bargain.
Yeah, yep, in a lot of ways. And so, I mean, just through that, they ended up becoming twisted and dark and different. You know what I mean? They adapted to life in the Darklands and things of that nature also. So they've been down there basically since Earthfall, you know, and so when the actual elves came back, one of the things that's very unique about the Drow is they consider themselves the pure elven race. So, because, like, and they're also like, we're the ones that stuck behind. You know, the rest of you guys took off. We stayed by our planet, and we are the ones that are the most true to elven ideals.
So it seems like they maybe don't have a great leg to stand on, because it's like, we stay true to elven. Yeah, we made a deal with some demons, but
yeah, I mean, they consider, you know, they consider themselves like the pure elven race.
Okay.
So
and so, do we know anything about what those other elves were doing in Silvarin or whatever?
prancing.
Okay.
No,
yeah.
I really the whole reason they come back to begin with is not for any. I mean, the whole reason they came back is when they're in the Silverian realm. The Silverian stone is what gets them there. They actually, and this was another group of elves I accidentally forgot to mention that stayed behind, but they basically occulted the entire city they were in to keep people from even knowing it was there, and then they defended the Silverian stone, and that's their whole point. Because if the Silverian stone went away, then so would the access be going back, and the access to be able to go back and forth from Silverian to Golarion. Well,
we almost have a rhyme going.
We do. It's a rap now all of a sudden.
Yeah.
Well, so long story about this demon named Tree Raiser.
Tree Raiser.
Tree Raiser.
Tree Raiser.
Tree Raiser. He ends up tromping around in the Elven Forest. He somehow discovers the Silverian stone exists, and he's like, "Screw this! I can use it to align Golarion with the Abyss." And basically just like be able to have more or less instant transportation. So he attacks. He's able to find the city and he attacks it, and that alerts the elves on Silverian as to what happened, as to Tree Raiser's plan. So they come back to stop him.
Gotcha.
So and then once they got back, they just kind of like, wow, things aren't quite as crappy here as we thought they would be. You know, they figured humans were, you know, going to be running around all barbarous and whatnot, and civilizations had popped up by then, and it wasn't quite as bad as they thought it would be, so they decided to stick around.
So that's interesting. That's I mean, that kind of pops up in a lot of things. It also makes me think of what is it in Exalted, like the Celestial, you know, where they play the games all day.
Yeah,
you know, that sort of area where it's
Games
like
of Divinity,
yeah, where they kind of come back every now and then. They're like, oh, all right, these guys, you know, because I guess it seems kind of odd to me that because this was like hundreds of years, right, that they were gone?
Oh, thousands.
Okay, so this was thousands of years that they were gone. So one must assume that they had civilizations and infrastructure and all sorts of stuff of their own at least by this point. And it's like it would be as if, you know, I grew up in the Midwest. It would be as if like I went to L.A. until I was like 75, and then went back to the Midwest and it's like, well, this wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I'm gonna live here now. You know, like that just seems a huge jump.
Well, I mean, even because we don't know what their connection to this plane was before. I mean, they could have lived there prior to us, so it'd be then left and then come back and then left again. So the entire, I mean, I think that's part of like the haughtiness of the elves is this entire idea of like, well, you know, this is good right now. That type of This isn't as bad as we thought it would be, so let's just kind of stick it out for a little while and see what happens.
Is there any sort of, like, we need to shepherd them? Anything like that? Or?
Not really, but the fact that they actually left someone behind to guard the Silverian stone instead of just bringing it with them or just letting it get destroyed and closing the door behind them means that Golarion's important to them in some fashion.
And also, I'm assuming that Tree Raiser's plans got derailed then.
Yes, he's still around. They were able to like corner him in their southern forests, but he's still there. And it's kind of at a stalemate on that point, so they can't get past him, but he can't really encroach outwards, so...
Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk very briefly about, after Aroden's death, I'm sure there were many repercussions. The one main one that I was going to ask about was the House of Thrune. Is there anything else that you wanted to bring up?
Well, about the House of Thrune?
No, about Aroden's death.
Not specifically, not that I can think of.
Okay,
so.
Then it mentions very briefly in a lot of the stuff that Aroden's death impacted the House of Thrune. Either it took it out or it came into power in Cheliax afterwards, and like that's when Cheliax's kind of main shift happened. Right, so how did that tie in with Aroden's death?
Well, Aroden's death was prophesized to... Well, I mean, sorry. Aroden was prophesized to return, and at that point in time, the seat of Aroden's religion was in Cheliax. It had moved from Taldor to Cheliax. And so that was just supposed to be like... At that point in time, it was the Chelaxians believed that they were essentially going to become the new... Aslanti. You know, they expected to have the type of power and riches and whatnot because Aroden was supposed to be walking among them now and whatnot, and obviously that didn't happen. So they basically their entire governmental structure just started breaking down. They had a civil war. There was all types of infighting going on. I think it lasted 60-ish years, give or take, if I remember right, before the House of Thrune raised up. Cheliaxian history is interesting because apparently they rewrite it every 3 months. So,
Nice.
you know, like, seriously, apparently every 3 months they just issue new histories and to the people that are prescribed to have the history books that are allowed to, and they have to return the old copies, you know, to be destroyed. If they don't, all types of punishments happen, and so they, like, just every few months they just creatively re-edit history.
There's an adventure seed there. It's also very 1984. Like, we've always been at war with Eurasia.
Yep. And eventually their goal is to be like, we have always been aligned with Azimatus, you know. They eventually are going to rewrite Aroden out of their history, period, and it will always have been Azimatus. So. Which
I think I know what you're talking about there, but I won't ask about it because we'll get into that either next time or the time after when we talk about Cheliax in more depth. So anyway, I think that's it for now, right?
I think so.
All right, cool. Thank you. I'm Michael T. Bradley.
I'm Jason Freston.
And we'll see you next time on Golarion Illuminated.